All right, good morning. I'm still setting this thing up. We'll see how things go. And let's show the chat. And for anyone who's joining us today, we are starting in 3.1. So 3.1, it's going to be a bit of review of some stuff we've already discussed. And like all math, we're just going to build upon previous ideas. If you're struggling at all with this, remember I do offer tutoring. You'll see me tuned into the Zoom today at 3, Mondays and Wednesdays at 3 p.m. I'm usually at my desk, tuned in, and I'm happy to assist you. If for any reason you're struggling, you're welcome to come into the classroom. You are welcome to email me. You are welcome to reach out to me. I am here to help. Don't feel alone in this journey. All right. So today's class, we're going to talk about an introduction to decimals. And with that, I want to talk about an idea that comes up with decimals that you may hear me say a lot. If you haven't heard me say it, give me time. You'll hear it. And that is that a decimal is a fraction, is a percent, is, and then we go back up to a decimal. These three things are interchangeable. Chances are, if you struggle with one of these concepts, you're going to struggle with the others. It's just the nature of the beast. And so today we're going to go over some things, talk about what they are, what they mean, and how to play with them. So on this, we have an example here. It says, not to skip too far ahead, we have the number system, 110, 1, and then here's our decimal. And the decimal's kind of like the yardstick you measure from. In the number system, we like to measure starting at 0, we go negative if we're below 0, positive if we're above. Well, the decimal is our way of saying, hey, what's a whole number? This side. What's a fraction? This side. So think of it in terms of, I look to my decimal and I use that to inform how I'm going to write something, how I'm going to determine what it means. So in the example, they give us 132 point. So 132 point. That means we have 100. Let's do this. We have 100, 3 tens, and 2 ones. The point means this is where I'm going to start needing fractions. So this is in the tenths. You can think of it a lot like dimes if you're thinking of American monetary units. Hundredths as pennies. But then we get thousands. That's kind of different. And so what we would do is we would take and we would write this out as 132 whole plus, and this number here should be a 5, 524 over 1,000. And how I'm finding that is I start at my decimal. So my decimal's right here. Oh, let me do this properly. My decimal, sorry about that, is right here. So that's my decimal. So it starts with the 1 to the right is the tenths, hundredths, then thousandths. I'm just going to continue that pattern. And so then next would be the 10 thousandths. And notice that at the end, that indicates the THS. That indicates I'm dealing with a fraction less than a whole. I'm dealing with a decimal. That's how I can know. Okay, so now if I were to write this as a fraction, I have 524 over 1,000. And that will do for what we're doing today. In the future, we'll probably want to prime factor that bad boy and then figure out a more exact number, one without so much fluff, one that's simplified. Now this is asking, what is the place value of 4 in this number? So I'm going to go, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for this, that decimal. That's my yardstick. Remember, everything to the left of the decimal is in whole numbers. Everything to the right is cut into pieces. So I'm going to say to myself, hey, look, self, the 4 is right next to the decimal. Now, there is no once. It's only tenths. We have no once. So notice up here, it starts at tenths. So don't make that mistake. Don't think there's a once. There's no such animal. We haven't defined that. So with that in mind, the 4 is in the tenths place. Well, what's the 1 in? The 1 would be in the hundredths. The 3 would be in the thousands. Meaning if I wrote this out in expanded form, I could say this is 60 plus 4 plus, oh, I'm lying to myself, 60 plus 5 plus 4 over 10 plus 1 over 100 plus 3 over 1,000. Then if I were to take the time, get them together with the common denominator and things, I would end up with the 65 and then the 413 out of 1,000. All right, so next comes converting a decimal to a fraction. Now it wants us to write this as a mixed number. So we have 7.25. So we have 7 plus 25. So we go to the right of the decimal, how many places? Tenths, hundredths. So that'll be over 100. And then I can prime factor those down unless I see it. In this case, I see it. 25 divided by 25 is 1. 100 divided by 25 is 4. So we have 7 and 1/4. Notice I said the word and there. When I say and, I'm indicating less than a whole. So that doesn't matter if I'm talking about fractions, decimals. I'm talking about it in terms of less than 100. So next we'll go to, oh, someone's phone's ringing. Round this number 173.264 to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to take and remind myself, where am I rounding to? That 2. What am I looking at? That 6. Okay, 6 is above 5. So it's 5 or above. So I round, it becomes 173.3. I just copy down this number as it is, making no changes. And that follows along. The only number that will change is the one I've underlined, and it'll either stay the same or go up by 1, depending on what number is to the right of it. So next we have the same number to the 10th. That looks like the same thing. So now let's write out in words for number 1. This would be 5. And this is where it gets a little confusing for a lot of people. They'll look at this and they'll go, okay, 4 tenths and 6 100th. But when I talk about money, I would be talking about $5.46. the same thing applies. So I would write this out as 5 and 46 6 it's turning into a rough morning with the technology. Hundredths. Now remember, because we're less than a whole, I'm going to always include that THS on there. When we see a THS, that's what it's telling us. When we see that, it's saying, hey, this is after a decimal. So I'm going to go to the next one, and it says, write this out. And look at the number here, and. In my brain, that tells me, hey, Matt, put a decimal. All right, so the number 2011. So we have 2000 plus 11. So 2011.426 thousandths. 426 thousandths. Where I see the and tells me where the decimal is. That's how I know. It's one of those things where I'm always looking for where is the decimal? Where is the word and? That tells me where the fractions begin. All right. Now let's talk down here about something people struggle with. If these numbers are on the number line, people really struggle with this. This is on the GED high school equivalency test. You wouldn't believe how often people struggle with this concept. So on this, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to go, okay, 4 and 4, those are the same. 5 and 5, those are the same. 1 and 0, 1 is more than 0. My alligator faces towards the one that's more. The same thing here. 6 and 6 are the same. 1 and 2, well, 2 is more than 1. This one has less decimals. How is it bigger? Well, each one's a smaller and smaller piece. Eventually, you don't care how small the piece is. Regardless, this one's bigger right here, and that's how we know. Okay. And then we have here, convert to mixed numbers. So this would be 5 and 6 over 10, or 5 and 2 times 3 over 2 times 5. And those 2's reduce, and we get 5 and 3 out of 5. And that's how we can do these. And as you start to reduce these, you may notice something, a pattern with those. Measuring this in centimeters, I'm going to use a ruler. And I'm going to start over here. It must be a magic ruler. So a centimeter is 10 units. And it's represented on this. We've got the 0. Oh, it's not letting me mark. Let me do this. We've got the 0 right there. And here we have 1. So that would be 1 centimeter. Because it's 10 millimeters. So this would be 1. Why is it not writing? 1 cm. Next one. We're just going to measure it. And it's going to be, again, 1, 2.5. So we will call the next one 2.5 cm. The next one will be 10. See, here, let me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.5 4 centimeters. That ruler messes up my writing worse than it already is. Now notice I said this one was a half and I said 0.5. That's because 0.5 is a half. 0.5 represents 5 out of 10, which reduces to 1/2. So this is a brief introduction to decimals. Realize that if there's an and, that's the decimal point, always. Questions, comments, or concerns? All right, well, thank you very much for coming. I hope that you have a wonderful day.